Hey there, comic book fans. It's Rusty again with Collector Auctions, and here I am in the car again, headed to another little comic book show here in the Baltimore area. This show, like some of the others that I've just recently been to, are hosted by Clandestine Comics, but this is one of their special shows. It's called a CHUD, C-H-U-D. It means comics here under $1. And that's exactly what it means. It means that every comic at this show is $1 and under. And I thought this would be a great opportunity to add to an inventory of books that I'm pulling to do my very first WhatNot show. I don't have any plans exactly when that's going to happen, but this is a great opportunity to pull some great books for only $1. We'll see what we can find when we go up there today. Of course, I'll take some footage from inside the show. We'll come back, I will show everything I pick up, and we'll talk about the possibility of me doing my very first WhatNot show. So stay tuned, and I'll be right back. All right, guys, I just finished up here at the comic book show, and I had a great time going through all the comic books, going through as much as I could, because I'll tell you what, I picked a really good dealer to begin with. He had a lot of great runs, and I picked up a ton of books, a ton of different runs, great stuff. When I get home, I'm going to show off everything I got, and I'm going to try to do it super quick. But there is a lot of books, and I hope you're all prepared. So stay tuned, and I'll be right back.
One eternity later.
All right, everybody, I made it back home, and I got to tell you, this is going to be one of my biggest comic book hauls I've ever done. So you notice I don't have the stand that I usually have here. That's because I'm not going to take time to put the books up here and let you look at them for a long time, because there is a ton of books, and I want to show you everything that I picked up from this comic book show. Again, from what I said at the very beginning, my intent was to go in and to find books to possibly add to an inventory of books that I want to pull for one of my very first WhatNot shows. I haven't committed to making that show yet, although I am signed up on WhatNot. But I'd like to be able to have an inventory ready to go. And I thought, what a better way to do this? What better way to do this than to go to a CHUD, a Comics Here Under a Dollar show, and pick up cheap inventory on some really good books and some good runs. And I didn't know what to expect when I walked in there. I've been to these shows before, and to be quite honest, I've gone with different expectations before, and the last one I did last summer was really good when I did the episode talking about trying to start a comic book resale business for only $25. And that whole intent was go in there with $25, find 25 great books that could possibly go into CGC to get graded. Now, granted, the concept was spend $25 on the books and then invest obviously more money into getting them graded and then turn them around for resale at that point. Now, that was the intent of the show. What I found was it was a little bit more difficult than that, and I did find some good books for that, as well as some other great dollar finds. But this show, and over the course of the last half year since that show came out, I've been thinking about doing WhatNot. I've been signed up in there for a long time, but that's a big jump for me. But I've seen a lot of success from some local sellers, and obviously something I am considering doing myself. My current platforms on eBay and Shortbox are fine, but it is somewhat limiting. And why not, right? Why not WhatNot? So it's good for everybody, I suppose. Even though I've poo-pooed on sellers on there, maybe I can do it and I can try to be better. I don't know. It's a learning process for me. So here I am trying to come up with an inventory. Although I have a lot of great books anyway, this presented a great opportunity for not only to have an inventory for a WhatNot show, but obviously for a show and tell for you guys as well. And you know me, I go in there and I look for good books that possibly could be graded and to invest in as well. So I'm definitely looking for some good values. And that was my intent going into the show. But as soon as I walked in there, it might as well have been a feeding frenzy. It really was everybody for themselves. And as I said before, when I came out of the show, I went to a really good dealer that had a lot of great books and a lot of great runs. And we're not talking super expensive books, but there were definitely some gems in there. And boy, if you wanted to work on some runs, you could. And that's what I did. And honestly, I may have started my next comic book run despite thinking about doing something for WhatNot. Right there, I had just finished up my Invaders run, and at some point I'm going to do a show dedicated to every Invaders book. But I went for another book that I know I've already got a lot of those in my PC, but I bought one run that, man, it is a super run, and if you wanted to get started, this is the way to do it. In one show, I almost completed a run. That's how many books there were in this particular run. But nonetheless, let me go through this, and I'm going to break it down a little bit into small little batches so I can probably start and stop this video a little bit, because there are so many books sitting right here. You don't see them off screen, but there were a lot of books. So let's just get right into it. We'll start with our first run. I picked up a run of the Ultimate X-Men, and this is the original Ultimate X-Men. Now, what they didn't have from this one seller, and the majority of these books are coming from the one seller, they didn't have issue 1, and that one can be a few dollars more. You're not going to necessarily find issue number 1 as a dollar book. But let me just go right through this. And as I said, I don't have my stand here because I'm not going to put them up for very long, but we got issue 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. I believe Adam Kubert was doing most of these, or is it Andy? I think it was one of the two. I can't remember which Kubert, maybe both. We got 11, 12, 13. It looks like Gambit there. Definitely it was Gambit. There's 14, 15, 16, 17, and 18. It was a pretty good run on Ultimate X-Men. And a book I'd never read before, but again, I was thinking, why am I buying these books? I was buying them in sets, thinking that maybe that made them more desirable. Not just, there wasn't time to think individual books and to go through the apps to see if each book in any of these runs was that collectible. But I started thinking in terms of sets. What would people like to collect? And that's what I kind of went with in this. And this dealer had the runs, and not in a bad way, of course. But book I'd never read, although some of the later miniseries of this, I've read some of them. But Extreme X-Men from 2000, I believe this is 2001. But Claremont book right here. Extreme X-Men 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, and 13. And then I picked up the 2001 annual as well. These are all Extreme X-Men from Chris Claremont. All right, moving over to DC, and I will be going back and forth a little bit here. We've got the Justice League Unlimited. And of course, this is a kid's book. So having these as a run in really good condition, because it's a kid's book, could make it a little bit harder to find in higher grade. But we've got Justice League Unlimited number 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and number 8. And that, a lot of these, that may have been when the run ended. Some of these I might have stopped at a certain point. I don't think there were any more of those Ultimate X-Men books along further in the line, but in some of these I didn't get everything. I did stop at a certain point. So some of these didn't actually have the first issue in a run, but I went ahead and picked it up anyway, because sometimes that number 1, just like that Ultimate X-Men run didn't have issue number 1, some of these other ones won't as well. They are a little bit more valuable, but if you want to do the run, you can always pick that book up as well. So I've got Justice League Adventures, and this is issue number 2. Now, issue number 1, I almost sent into the Bruce Timm signing, but it had a little bit of a tick on there, and that's not a $1 book either. It's more like a $5 to $10 book, but we got issue number 2 right there. 3, 4, 5, 6, and 7. That might have been one of the ones that had a few more issues further on in the run. Cannot really remember at this point. So let's continue on with some of the other runs that I picked up. Generations number 2 from John Byrne, the Elseworlds Imaginary Tale. The first set of this was fantastic. The second one, Generations 2, was really good as well. I recommend picking up all these John Burns Generations books if you want to enjoy that. So we've got issue number 2. Generations 2. You got issue number 1. This is a 4-issue miniseries. Number 2, 3, and 4. So that was a nice little set. Also from DC, Matt Wagner. We've got Trinity, 3-issue miniseries. Number 1, these are all square-bound books. You got issue 1, 2, and 3. Another nice little set right there. Now, one of my favorite runs, and I pick this up all the time. If you guys follow the channel at all, you know when I pick up these runs of books, I always like to pick up this 5-issue set. It is one of my favorite Batman storylines from Doug Moench and Paul Gulacy from Batman: The Legends of the Dark Knight. When that book originally came out, they were doing 5-issue storylines. The first 5 issues, the second 5 issues, the third 5 issues, like that. These were all from early on in Batman's career. And the third storyline in this book was a storyline called Prey. And it was about Batman facing off against Hugo Strange. And you guys have got to read the story. It is one of my favorite Batman stories of all time. And I love picking this up. And not only do I love the story, I actually own a piece of original artwork from Paul Gulacy from this storyline that I've gotten him to sign over the years. All right, so we got issue number 1 of Prey. Number 2. I love picking this set up as a set all the time. Number 3. Let's stay there. Oops, sorry. Number 4. Sorry, I forget where I'm supposed to be holding these. And number 5. Definitely highest recommendation. This is where Matt Reeves, when he makes his next Batman film with Robert Pattinson, this right here, there's your story. Do this. Don't mess around. This is your storyline. Go do this right here. But following that is probably one of the best, also one of the best Batman stories ever. And it leads to, I'm surprised it isn't more valuable, because it definitely leads to one of Batman's biggest villains, Bane. And it came from this storyline called Venom. And this was immediately following that last story, Prey. And this is a storyline of where Venom was created. And this is the Venom that, of course, powers Bane. And you've got Batman, who is relying on this drug to help him become stronger, so he won't be in situations where he will find himself helpless. And I did not find the first issue in this, but I did pick up the 4 issues, the last 4 issues of the miniseries. So we got this one. That's issue number 17, 18, 19, and 20. And I've got a set of these all signed by Jose Luis Garcia Lopez, who did, I believe he did the inking on these. And I knew at one point I wanted to get Denny O'Neil to sign this because he wrote this. And it was just one of those things that I never got around to it, and unfortunately he passed a few years ago, so that was unfortunate. But this is a nice set. I just wish I had found issue number 1. That is a book that you still will find in dollar bins wherever you go, so I will definitely look for that issue number 16 to be able to throw into there and to be able to maybe sell this as a complete set. All right, continuing on. Some of these times it wasn't completely just 5 issues here or a complete mini-series or whatever. Sometimes it was little stories in the middle of runs, sort of like that Legends of the Dark Knight. But I found from Legends of the DC Universe, there was a 2-issue storyline. And I don't really care about the storyline, but Steve Rude did the covers. And you've got this beautiful, I'd seen this artwork before, but I never knew where it was from. It's from this Legends of the DC Universe right there, issue number 22 and then 23. And I thought that was pretty cool. And I honestly didn't buy that so much as a resale, even though I did buy them as a set for that possibility. I bought that as, I just love Steve Rude artwork, and maybe someday I'll see him again. I know he was at Baltimore Comic-Con last year. Maybe I get him to sign something like that. And speaking of Steve Rude, I didn't even plan it this way, but next up from Marvel was the 3-issue miniseries, Spider-Man Lifeline. This was, he did the artwork for that. He was channeling John Romita Sr. in this. Beautiful storyline right there. And you got issue 1, issue 2, issue 3. Love the artwork in there. Most of the time he channels and embodies Jack Kirby, just like he did with the DC Universe stuff right there. But in this case, you could really see the Romita influence in there. All right, let's continue. We're talking about Spider-Man. They had Spider-Man Chapter 1 that John Byrne had started. It was kind of a restart. And we've got issue number 1. Number 2, and this is kind of John Byrne retelling the original Spider-Man stories. We got issue number 3. I don't think this really ever really caught on, but John Byrne doing anything is really cool. Got 4, and I stopped with issue 5 on this. I mean, I'll be quite honest. There's one run that's sitting right in front of me. When I present it, you'll understand why. On some of this, I didn't go past maybe the first 5 issues or so. It's because there's one run. As I said, I'll have to see how many issues in that run there really are, but when I knocked out as many as I did, you'll be amazed of what I did right there. Captain America, back in the early 90s when they did the Heroes Reborn, and you had the Image guys, before they were ever Image, reimagining the Marvel universe. You've got Rob Liefeld, you've got Jim Lee, all those guys, and they restarted Captain America, Avengers, Fantastic Four, and stuff like that. And they did have some of those runs right there. So Rob Liefeld on Captain America, they did not have issue number 1, but we got issue number 2, issue number 3, and issue number 4. Issue number 1, you can still find that in dollar bins as well. I just did not find it at this show. I'll save these, try to get an issue 1 to put that together as a set. Jim Lee, of course, was doing Fantastic Four, and you got issue number 1 right there, number 2, number 3, number 4, and I've got a variant of that as well that I was never really aware of, so I'm going to have to look that one up, and issue number 5. And I kind of stopped. I know they had a few more issues than that, but again, at a certain point, I realized I had a limited budget to begin with, and I kind of had to pull up at a certain point, and I pretty much blew everything at the first dealer, which would explain part of why I started working on runs, and then later on I was working on I changed focus into looking for books that might actually have some real value if you got them graded at CGC. Liefeld actually was also over on Avengers, so we got issue number 1 of that. Number 2, got issue number 3, get issue number 4, and issue number 5. So that was a nice little set right there. I thought 5 issues usually is a pretty good set. I expanded out on some of the other ones, but I always thought 5 issues or maybe even 6 is usually a pretty good set to sell if you want to put them together. All right, guys, we're actually going to stop the show right here. I apologize. I was going to have this as one episode, but when I finished filming, I realized this is going to be super long. It was over 200 comic books in this haul, and I realized at the end, there's no way I was going to put out a 46-minute show. So I'm going to cut it in half. We're going to stop today, and then we'll pick it up at the next episode. And you want to stay tuned for that because I have got some great books, including that one run that I nearly got every book in the entire run. You'll have to stay tuned to see what I picked up there. And we'll pick that up in the next episode right where I left off. But if you enjoyed the show so far, definitely give me a like, slap that subscribe, and click on that notification bell so you don't miss out on any of the episodes that I do put out each and every week, Monday, Wednesdays, and Fridays at 3 p.m. All right, guys, I hope to see you here for the next show. Until then, remember, every comic has a story.